So we've got a short and angry gravity manipulator with a fancy hat and a choker. Like shit, I'm completely sold already. Chuya falls into the category of a character becoming a fandom's fan favorite, wherein an increasingly large amount of people love the character and engage online with the content of the character, whether it's through posting fan art, text posts, meme posts, character analysis, GIFs, fanfics, and even dedicating their online handle to Chuya himself. I mean, think of a number of Chuya related name accounts there are here on YouTube or on Twitter and Tumblr. He is undeniably one of the many Bungou Stray Dogs fan favorites. Now, I want you all to keep in mind that a lot of this may not make a lot of sense to you, sort of like it's the Always Sunny meme with the guy trying to connect all the shit on the board. You think of that tired and sleep deprived looking man as me. To an extent, I may be grasping at straws here, but I'm having fun and this sort of makes sense to me, though I may just be reading too much into the media I consume. So I just want to say this video is a casual and fun one, not to be taken super seriously. Think of it as me yelling into the abyss that is YouTube and presenting some weird thought I had. Like that man in the meme, looking terribly frantic and desperate to be understood. This idea of mine has been haunting me, and I have been unable to let it go. And because of this, I cannot contain my mess of thoughts anymore and decided to just make the video already, even if after I upload it, none of it makes sense and I look like a complete dumbass. At least I'll know I tried to articulate this very weird idea I had to the best of my abilities. Before we get into this video, I will just like to put a quick disclaimer that we will be getting into spoilers for all of the anime content and manga spoilers for Bungou Stray Dogs, so up to chapter 88 of the manga. If you don't want to get any spoilers for the manga at all of what potentially happens in season 4, I would suggest clicking out of this video right now. I just wanted to mention that the argument I'm making for this video is mainly directed at primarily anime only watchers who have only read the manga because they want to know what happens next. So similar to myself, I watched the anime up to season 2 and then there was no season 3 yet, like that didn't come out yet. So I ended up reading, continuing from season 2. I just started off there in the manga. I didn't read from the beginning of a manga to what happened, like what was currently happening in the manga. I read from like what happened season 2 into like season 3 basically. So this is more towards those folks, like those types of watchers, mainly like the anime focused watchers rather than people who read the light novels. I am not talking about light novel readers because I know the Bungou Stray Dogs canon universe extends to light novels. What I'm trying to say is mainly directed towards people who went from watching the anime to reading parts of the manga and not light novel readers. But other than that, we can get right into this video. I decided to coin the term Chuuya Effect, mainly because I couldn't think of another anime I have watched, and I want to stress that because I haven't watched every single anime that has come out, so whatever anime you have watched that fits this description could also fit this effect on that show as well. But for now, I'm going to just call it the Chuuya Effect because I think Chuya fits this situation or theory of mine very closely, so that's why I decided to call it the Chuya Effect. The only closest characters I could think of were Levi from Attack on Titan or Todoroki from Hero Academia, but both of these characters have a lot of character development and growth. From my vague understanding of Attack on Titan, Levi isn't a minor character, and Todoroki has his whole family who probably are in great need of therapy from an abusive father figure in their house, so yeah. And since I don't keep up with either of these shows besides seeing a stray Hero Academia meme on Tumblr, I can't argue it suits either of them, but they are prime examples of characters who become fan favorites, where they are largely more popular than the protagonists by many fans of the series. Chuuya Effect is specific in that because there are so many people who care about the character and are invested in seeing more every time they appear, but the scenes that they're in don't have a big impact, it keeps disappointing the fans who are eager to see more of them. Unlike the other mentioned characters that could potentially fit this being the fan favorite category, Chuuya's effect is more drastic on the viewer, where the storyline feels lacking because the character, the author, didn't intend, this is a key, didn't intend to be a major role, is now suddenly a fan favorite. So now we're scrambling scrambling on how to include him into the plot. In the manga, any single mention of a tiny panel of Chuya, however brief, is excitement inducing, but he isn't a key player as of now to the plot. Now, Chuya is introduced very later on in the show, which is a clear indicator he is not a part of the main cast. He is introduced as an enemy of the ADA. Now, this video wouldn't be happening right now if it weren't for one specific word spoken. Chuya changes everything with his character when he utters this very important word, partner. In fact, two important words when put together give a whole new meaning, former partner. These are the words that drastically change Chuya's character from being slightly interesting to wow, an extreme intrigue of the audience, because now the audience is scrambling with questions they want answers to. What was your partnership like? How did they meet? Why did Dazai join the mafia? Why did Dazai leave it? Etc, etc. Now, why Dazai left is answered later on, and how they meet is answered later on as well. But still, this instance of attention grabbing is a prime contributor as to why so many people got interested in Chuya. He has an iconic dramatic entrance, check. He has conflict and a loaded past with a main cast member and also basically the second protagonist of the show, check. His design is appealing, check. All contributors to his popular character. Because of all these intriguing factors that get you hooked on wanting to know more about Chuya, and to an extent, you know, Chuya's and Dazai's former partnership, Chuya slowly started to become the fan favorite. And when I mean the fan favorite, I mean there are so many Chuya stans, and like, I would say a vast majority of people like in the Bungo Stray Dogs fandom, like, or a high percentage, maybe not majority, are either like Dazai stan or Chuya stan. It's like an either or like you're a little bit of both, or you're also an Oda stan, because like Oda's a very iconic character as well. I feel like he is probably fairly high up. Everyone loves Oda, but Chuya is very attention grabbing and he is very, very, very popular. Looking at a very popular fanfic website, AO3, Archive of Our Own, for character tags, Nakahara Chuya has 15,765 fics of like that has a tag including Chuya in the fic, okay? He is number 2 on the list of characters. He is before Atsushi, the main protagonist. Now, Archive of Our Own, mainly the fics on the website are about ships, right? So obviously Chuya would probably be very high up there, over like Atsushi, who is, you know, like younger, maybe isn't as shipped as often as Chuya would be. But still, he's like number 2 on like just like listed of characters. I'm not looking at the shipping tags, I'm looking at the characters included in the fanfic, and Chuya is literally included like the second most. Dazai is number 1, obviously. So I do truly believe like Dazai is probably the most popular character in the series, but Chuya, personally, I truly believe he became a fan favorite, became increasingly popular to an extreme degree, and that the author didn't intend for Chuya to become that popular. Going through the series chronologically, after the season 2 Dazai and Chuya team up, I believe that is when people become incredibly interested in Chuya's character, especially after the Double Black episode where they had the team up. And following this, we are all on the edge of our seats, like waiting for Chuya to appear again, or like have another team up with Dazai, or anything more involved with Chuya, because like we want to know more about him, of course. And chronologically, the next thing that was coming out was the OVA. And before the OVA came out, I remember being on Tumblr and there was a post going around that like probably got a lot of notes that came from Twitter, where there was an animation sketch of Chuya that was supposed to be part of an OVA. So it got everyone hyped about the OVA, because we were all like, oh my gosh, Chuya's gonna be in the OVA. I'm so excited to see Chuya in the OVA. Like, he's probably gonna have like a big part of this OVA. I'm so excited to see what he's gonna contribute to it. Like, is he gonna be involved in like a fight or something? Like, what's gonna happen? And then the OVA comes around, and guess what happens? They don't do anything with Chuya. He's literally just like dangling from a ceiling, just appears for a second, says like one line and leaves. And to me, that reads as they literally, not baited, but like they know there are Chuya stands and there's a lot of fans for Chuya, so they literally just inserted him into the OVA simply due to that, because he literally had like no contribution. Like, he just gave a throwaway line about Dazai, which obviously could get like Dazai and Chuya shippers excited, obviously. And as a Dazai and Chuya shipper myself, I was like, OVA, like obviously I'm gonna be like, of course Chuya brings up Dazai. I'm not gonna deny that I'm a shipper, because I am. Obviously that like gets like the fans hyped, but I'm not like solely a shipper. Like I want Chuya to have his own development, not solely based on Dazai. I was excited to see how like Chuya would be involved in the situation. Like would there be a Chuya Kunikita interaction or something of the sort? But we didn't get that. It was literally just like the ruined Chuya dangling him like a carrot just to get like the viewers hyped or excited about the OVA. And for people who already knew what was gonna happen, in terms of like people who already read the manga, probably like already knew Chuya didn't have much to do. But for anime only watchers, when they saw that tiny little sketch, they were probably all like hyped as shit and were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get more Chuya. But then they didn't. So it's like disappointing for anime only watchers who didn't know what would be a part of the OVAs. Then the first teaser poster for Dead Apple came out, and it was a silhouette of Chuya and Dazai on this like destroyed battlefield, and everyone was freaking out online like, oh my gosh, Dead Apple is gonna be about Chuya and Dazai. Pretty sure the light novel for Dead Apple came out after the Dead Apple movie, so I'm pretty sure no one knew what happened to Dead Apple when this was happening. I'm pretty sure, like I'm like 90% sure. If everyone already knew what would happen in it and there was already translations online of it, then I feel like it wouldn't have been as hyped. And everyone was excited about it. I literally went to go see Dead Apple in theaters, like that's how excited I was about it. I literally knew nothing and I was like, oh my god, Dazai and Chuya are gonna be in this. And then I'm pretty sure later there was another poster that did have Atsushi and everyone else on it, but Chuya I'm pretty sure was on that poster, so I still had hopes, even though like Atsushi is obviously like the main character, he's gonna be like the main focus. But in terms of like what in the bare bones what happens in Dead Apple, like Dead Apple isn't a movie that develops that much. It's pretty much a formulaic shonen movie. Obviously we get more about Atsushi's past, technically we get all that development, but in terms of like what happens of Chuya, it is once again we get partial development in that we now know Chuya is also partly self-sacrificing in a way, because he literally went into that situation not knowing if Dazai was alive, so basically he could have potentially just ended up dying in order to save the city that he loves. So it's like he's willing to do anything for the city he wants to protect, and also for the poor mafia that he wants to protect, because he wants to protect his people. We know how willing he is to sacrifice himself now as well, which shows how deep his loyalty lies. He's defensive of people around him that are like following his orders, or like people he surrounds himself with that like he becomes close with, and he doesn't want them to like die because of like mistakes he makes or like the choices the poor mafia makes. He doesn't want his own people to die as a result of that. So like we do get partial development in terms of that, but once again like it's very bare bones. Sort of at the climax, like towards the end, they kind of just trickle Chuya in slowly throughout, and then he gets the big ass fight scene that everyone loves, and I do love that fight scene. It's amazing and it's like iconic. But then he isn't like the ending fight scene. It's not like Chuya solves the entire conflict or plot. He's just like the, as Mori jokes, he's like the opening act before the main show that everyone's waiting for, which was Atsushi, Kyoka, and Futagawa team up. And because of this, I would say like even though his battle was super iconic and very meaningful for me, the fact that it isn't like the final stand against the villain or like the ending fight that is the solution to the conflict of a movie, I would say he doesn't really have that big of a development. Like if he was like a main player in terms of like the end, and it's like, oh, it was everyone standing together, like maybe it was like Dazai, Chuya, and then Futagawa, Kyoka, and then Atsushi, all of them together, like maybe. But because it's like he was like the earlier on act, like the opening act, it doesn't read to me as like he is a key player. Even though he was on the first teaser poster, he's still a secondary at most character after like Atsushi, Kyoka, Futagawa, and Dazai. Like those are like the main focuses, especially Atsushi and Dazai, obviously, because they're like the main characters. So because of this, I do think like Chuya did contribute a bit. I'm not gonna lie and say he didn't contribute anything, because the reason they won the fight was because of Chuya, but it's also his contribution is downplayed by the fact that Atsushi is still the one that gets the ending hit in the end. You know what I mean? The roles are still in the same spots. Atsushi and Dazai still take up, you know, like the main character roles, and Chuya is still not gonna be getting any more like extreme development or screen time that a lot of Chuya stands are craving. As for season 3, yes, we did get a lot of Chuya content in terms of having the whole backstory about Chuya. I'm not gonna deny that like that didn't happen. They adapted the light novel, but they left so many questions unanswered that it sort of doesn't feel satisfying to watch, or like you have like completely gotten the whole story. It makes you want more. And this is what I'm nervous about, because there are so many like Bungo Stray Dogs light novels. So if there is a season 4, there is no guarantee that they're going to animate the like second portion of this story that I'm pretty sure is in the second Chuya light novel. My understanding, like I'm pretty sure they conclude the open-ended questions about Rando, that character, like his whole backstory and like discovering all that. And also they were saying like they were insinuating that they could like make gifted people, like they were like, oh, like technologically created, like as if it, like you could create gifted children or something. Like that's what it was implying, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a very exciting storyline to go through, like people trying to recreate gifted folks or something like that, where they trying to create gifted individuals scientifically. Like that's super messed up. More on the lore would be interesting, so that's why I was excited to know more about that. But there are other light novels, to my understanding. There's a whole like Ranpo backstory light novel, and considering what happens in the manga, I wouldn't be surprised if the season 4 decides to adapt Rampo's backstory, because I'm pretty sure in the next arc in the manga, Rampo's involved a lot in the manga. There's a lot of development for Rampo, and like he's very much involved, so I wouldn't be surprised if we decide to animate that instead of continuing Chuya's storyline. So that's my only wariness about, like, I'm happy we got the light novel adapted or like a portion of it, but I'm wary in that I don't know if we're gonna continue the story, because then it's just going to feel unsatisfying and it isn't complete. Like it's gonna feel incomplete, the story. So if they don't complete it, then I would say it's nice that they gave us partially that character development, but I'll say like it doesn't feel quite as complete, which leaves Chuya's character not quite as well-rounded as I would like him to be. As for the rest of season 3, Chuya is pretty much like thrown into the book and never talked about again. I didn't like how they basically sidelined him, threw him in the book just so they didn't have to deal with him. It felt very much like, oh, he's so overpowered, I don't know how to write this character, so we're gonna put him in a book. It's one thing to show what happens in the book, because then I would be like, yes, it's a good thing you're developing Chuya, you're showing what he would do in that circumstance, but they played it off as a comedic gag, which sort of just rubs me the wrong way. It's almost like they didn't feel like Chuya'd be intelligent enough, or like they didn't want to show what happened in the book enough, so that like they played off as a gag that Chuya just fought against the intellectual aspect of discovering a mystery through sheer force and like physical prowess, basically, like his physical abilities. He would just beat up everybody to get to the murder or whatever. Like if he beat up everyone, it's like, I found the murder anyways. Like I'm pretty sure that was the gag, and like that sort of wastes opportunity to show Chuya's analytical side, or like more aspects about Chuya, or how he might think through problems without design involved. That was a grand opportunity wasted. So I'm still salty about that, and I didn't like how it played off that whole book thing as a gag. It felt like a waste of potential, and very much like the author didn't know what to do with Chuya. At least in terms of what I've seen up to chapter 88 in the manga, it seems every single time Chuya is involved that the author does not know what to do with Chuya. This could also be due to the fact that Chuya's ability is super OP, and it's like the classic, you wrote yourself into a corner and you don't know what to do with a super overpowered character that has a very, you know, like canon-like ability like Chuya's, where it's like he could probably one up a lot of different people. But I don't really think that's a good enough excuse. For instance, as I said, for the Rampo and Po versus Chuya fight, the author wasted the opportunity to expand on Chuya's character, because in Po's book, Chuya's OP ability, which could be deemed hard to write, isn't a factor in Po's book. Their ability is literally taken away from them. So the argument that, oh, an OP character is hard to write, literally Po's book sort of takes out that complaint, because Chuya doesn't have his ability in the book. So it was a prime opportunity wasted for the author to delve more into Chuya's character. Later on in the manga, Chuya appears once briefly, and it's not very long. He's once again not mentioned afterwards what exactly he's up to. It feels almost like Chuya is a guest star on a show, or when in a movie a person has a single cameo scene and that's it. That's all we get. Because of these very simple instances, it feels as if the author does not know what to do with Chuya, but is aware and knows of his popularity. There is an unrealistic hope in myself and probably other Chuya fans that he will have a larger role in Dazai's overall scheme to defeat the big baddie that is Fyodor. But as of now, Chuya is greatly underused. Dazai being locked up is the perfect opportunity to have conflict for Chuya and screw Dazai's plan up. The only problem with Chuya's ability, which is already super OP, is that he needs Dazai in order to live, to do his like ultimate move, which truly gives Fyodor the prime chance to force Chuya's hand in trying to get him to use his ability, where everyone will die without him using it, and if it were to happen and Chuya die, then Fyodor has basically taken out the Port Mafia's greatest weapon. That is a big win for him, because the Port Mafia could have a less ability to retaliate the control that Fyodor is trying to get over the ADA and to an extent the Port Mafia. Now, alternatively, Fyodor could try to use Chuya against the ADA, but it doesn't seem likely because Chuya is loyal to a fault, and though he isn't part of the ADA, Mori's investment in the ADA existing purely on the tiny chance that Dazai could come back and take over after he dies is probably enough to not convince Chuya to join up with Fyodor, unless he had blackmail. Then it could be potentially on the table. But the plot literally writes itself, and you could say that sounds super fanficky, like what I just suggested of like Fyodor using Chuya to ruin Dazai's scheme and using Chuya to his advantage. But I would say the creator themselves, current plot of the manga is extremely fanficky already. I mean, vampires. That's all I'm saying, like vampires, seriously. So I don't really think it's a big of a stretch for the author to do that, because then the Bungo Stray Dogs manga itself could be described as already fanficky, given the road it's going under, like the sudden turn it was taking at chapter 88, which I stopped reading at. Chuya has even more potential for development that the author hasn't tapped into yet, and that concerns the secondary duo of his show, Shinsokuku. Technically, he should be helping out or like involved with Shinsokuku, because Shinsokuku is supposed to be like the new Sokuku. Not exactly the same, but like a modern version of Sokuku, right? I'm saying modern because like I don't want to say that they're copying Sokuku. They're like completely different than Sokuku. What I'm trying to say is that they are like getting inspiration or like mentorship from Dazai, clearly. Like we see that often for Akutagawa and Sushi, but they don't get the same mentorship from Chuya, and that, at least to me, is an indicator that it's not equal in terms of development. If truly like Shinsokuku is supposed to be like somewhat inspired by Sokuku, they should be able to both learn from Dazai, but also they have to learn from Chuya. Chuya is a part of Sokuku. Yes, Dazai is probably like coming up with crazy plots. He's very smart. It is incomprehensible to, you know, like a regular person such as myself that is very average in terms of like intelligence. You know what I mean? Like I know that I'm not like super smart or anything like that. Like Dazai is like intelligence to an extreme, where he's doing crazy chess moves on top of chess moves on top of chess moves. Like basically he's doing some wild stuff against Fyodor where we're trying to outplay each other. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, Dazai is capable of all these intelligent plans and doing all these great things, but Chuya does contribute a specific factor to Sokuku, and not including him in terms of this whole like Dazai's giving like mentorship, it doesn't really make sense, because we could clearly see scenes of Akutagawa getting at least some mentorship or like advice from Chuya, because Chuya is an executive. He could give advice to any of his like subordinates or people around that he wants to help out, and Chuya is fairly loyal. It seems that he does care a lot about for his people. He was very adamant about being angry at Q because Q put a lot of his people in body bags. Like he was pissed about that. So to me, it would seem like Chuya would be interested in helping out at least Akutagawa, even though like Akutagawa is technically probably not under Chuya. I feel like if they are trying to argue Shinsokuku is a new iteration of Sokuku and inspired by Sokuku, and Dazai is trying to like bring this thing forward, it'd make more sense to incorporate both Chuya and Dazai being involved. It doesn't logically make sense, at least personally for me, to just disclude the other person person that's a part of a partnership. A partnership is of two people. Like, you need both in order for it to make sense. Now, I've only read up to chapter 88. Perhaps Chuya does get more involvement and he does help give advice to Atsushi or something. Like, maybe that is a thing that happens. I would love for that to happen because I would love to see Atsushi and Chuya, you know, like, interact, because I don't think we really gotten that, like, very much in the series at all, if at any. Like, do they even share that many scenes together? I don't think so. So, like, what I'm trying to say is there is so much potential with Chuya, and because, as you could probably tell by the way I'm talking about Chuya and, like, thinking in depth about Bungo Stray Dogs and Chuya's involvement in the plot, I am a Chuya stan. So as a person who is a Chuya stan, I, as you could tell, either nitpick or analyze Bungo Stray Dogs in a way where sometimes I could be irritated or disappointed by how the author handles Chuya's character. Is that to say, like, oh, I'm, like, never gonna read Bungo Stray Dogs ever again? No, I'll probably get back to the manga at some point. I just need a break from it. And I will, like, if there's a season 4, I'm definitely watching it and I am supporting it because I am a fan of Bungo Stray Dogs. But I could still be critical and still be a fan of something, people. Like, it's okay to be critical. You can love something and still find some partly faults within the thing that you love deeply, because I do love, like, Chuya and the show deeply, but there are some things that I feel like could be done better or could have been done differently. Because I'm a Chuya stan and, like, love Chuya's character a lot and want to see more of him being developed, not solely based upon, like, you know, Dazai's character, but just, like, Chuya himself. Once again, the show has you craving more because you don't get enough, even though Chuya isn't supposed to be getting that much development. Like, I shouldn't be craving and wanting, you know, Chuya to be getting more development. It doesn't make sense because he is, like, technically a secondary or, like, an antagonist character, but due to the fact that how he's presented and has so much character intrigue, both when he first arrives in his first appearance, the fact that episode where Chuya and Dazai team up again for, like, that single time in the show was, like, an amazing, like, eye-grabbing episode, and a lot of people probably find that episode to be, like, one of their favorites from that season. I know I do. It just causes more and more fans to become emotionally invested in Chuya's storyline, even though he isn't, you know, a key, like, protagonist. Like, he basically occupies sort of a similar position to Oda did in the Dark Era, where we're kind of seeing more of his perspective and we become emotionally invested in Chuya's own storyline and where his origins lie. Due to these actions of, like, always only, like, showing Chuya for a brief panel and always cutting away from him or, like, referencing him but not really going into depth of him, Chuya fans keep on craving for more and more content despite Chuya being only a secondary character. As fans, we shouldn't be expecting more development, but because of our attachment to the character, we want more development. So it's like, paradoxically, we are struggling with the fact that what happens in canon does not meet how we read the series. I feel like the creator, Bungo Stray Dogs, doesn't read Chuya as that much of an important character, but because he became a fan favorite to us, the fans, like, he is an important key player to us, but to the author, Chuya isn't. So there's, like, a discrepancy between what the author intends and what the fans have interpreted and latched onto. So what I'm trying to say is this Chuya effect is where a person who isn't supposed to be that popular, isn't really supposed to be even, like, a protagonist or, like, anyone a part of the main cast, a person who's supposed to be, if anything, like, a secondary character, an antagonist that is a secondary character, is now suddenly the fan favorite, like, the one everyone is looking forward to seeing, doesn't get much screen time or development, like, in the anime so far, and then from what I've read in the manga. Due to this fact, viewers become disappointed that they're not seeing that character. I feel like there should be a word for this. That's why I'm just gonna call it the Chuya effect for now. Like, a character becomes a fan favorite that wasn't intended to be a fan favorite, and subsequently, because they've become, like, so crazily popular, the fan responses to the media becomes more critical and disappointed in the media due to the fact that everyone loves this character that wasn't intended to be that popular. The media is now perceived and consumed in a different way, and I feel like there should be a word for this. Like, there should be a word that should describe when an author sort of doesn't intend the character to be popular but is popular and now doesn't know what to do with that character. Like, there should be a word for this. So that's all I really wanted to say. I don't know how to end this video other than asking you all if this idea makes sense and if you all can see an issue similar to this in any other anime, where the author has maybe unintentionally created a star character without realizing they would be that well loved by the fans. So that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to say a big thank you to all of the subscribers on this channel. Recently, I've gotten a lot more subscribers than expected, and I'm just so grateful and happy to read all your comments, and they just make my day. I just want to say that. Welcome to any new subscribers. I hope you enjoy this channel and have some fun talking about the anime we love, because that's basically what we do around here. So thanks for watching.